in order to occupy the spaces that they occupy. And so I'm aware that I'm assuming an awesome responsibility, and most of the time when I'm in chapel here, I never occupy this space because it is too daunting. I usually find myself on the floor because it's much more familiar, and it brings me closer. So I'm going to act like I'm grown up and stand in this space. I'm aware that I'm assuming an awesome responsibility for myself in framing an incredible accountability to each of you as I commit to stand with you in this space and in this moment. I'm certainly aware on several fronts. First, my community has called me and I must answer. Yes. And so by the means and strength of my changed name, communal name, G-dman, is a name that was hit upon and brought to me, given to me as a gift, to remind me that every time my community calls me, yes, I must answer. Yes. And so I have something to bring, and I trust that my Creator and my community have called me with an assurance, yes, of a common spiritual essence that circulates beyond the realm of this space, to include not only us who are here, but our ancestors, our elders, and the children yet on the way. To bring something that is respectful and an improvement and an increase. I am aware that I stand in an auspicious time in the history or her story of the tenure of this institution. Interestingly enough, this institution and I are about the same age. I believe that both the institution and I are learning that once we reach a certain stage in life, when we become an elder, it is our developmental responsibility to have some admonition to offer to our peers, yes, yes, and have something beneficial to say to the next generation. By this time, one has lived long enough to figure out that they are not going to die. Yes. One has figured out that it takes what it takes to live, and they do not have to scheme to get done what they need to get done. You are guided by a sense of integrity that you want as to one who lives in the world with yourself, your family, and your community. One, stop using others to do for them what they can do for themselves. I believe this institution, that we are in such a space. This institution needs us, we need it, and we need each other to establish a mutual occupancy of an authentic space that reflects the integrity of an institution that has not only survived, but is learning how to live out of the experiences and lessons it has learned. Yes. I want to thank my colleagues for the processes upon which we embarked some 5 years ago when we initiated the institution's quality enhancement plan, discussion, and settle upon a guiding image and metaphor of Sankofa. Yes. Sankofa is the art of looking back in order to see forward, the act of going back to retrieve the best and bringing that forward as impact in the present with the outcome of shaping the future. Yes. It is a living commitment to the value of memory, because the loss of memory causes a reduction in personal and corporate ability to do the specific type of reflexive, radical examination of ourselves, our ancestors, and the opportunities we create for future generations. Sankofa is a way of being present, addressing and attuned to the present with strategic appreciation for and actualization of the future, while looking and carefully gathering the precious benefits of the past. Yes. The Akan symbol represented in the Sankofa bird, looking backward in the moment to use its mouth to collect from its tail feathers the balance on its back, its own egg, the fragile future that is already unfolding in the present. From my biased perspective, as I thank my colleagues, I'm not real sure that we knew 5 years ago as we structured our quality enhancement plan what it fully meant, or even how to grasp fully Sankofa. However, we found ourselves curious, fascinated, intrigued, put off, wrestling, disturbed, and pulled forward. All I can attribute is that the Spirit work was pulling us forward while encouraging us to go back and fetch it. Our ancestors cheered us on. The living dead helped us to remember their stories, and the yet unborn beckoned us to create paths for them to follow when they arrived. As I speak from my biased perspective, I believe we grasp the idea of Sankofa, but not the reality of where it would lead us. We settle upon this expansive appreciation as framed by orality and ocularity because as African-descended people, we understood the depth of the need for and use of what W.E.B. Du Bois referred to as double consciousness. We intrinsically knew that we had to respect the interrelatedness of the two-ness that is within us. We also acknowledged that the two-ness of the reality and spirit out of which we live, we were clear that we needed to go back and collect some of the wisdom of the past in order to protect a balanced sense of self, community, and global society. We had not yet arrived at a full appreciation for the inclusion of the institution in our determination of what to protect as for our balance. We knew that this institution afforded us an opportunity to do this type of work, and it was necessary. Not everyone agreed, but we were conscious enough to know it was necessary. We were conscious enough to know that these walls house and filter a lot of joy, excitement, pain, and hurt. We have inflicted all of it upon ourselves and each other in a number of instances. Many of us here today are experiencing a number of gains and losses related to this institution as well as in our private and public lives. We bear in our bodies the indicators of maturation, aging, growth, and development. Brothers and sisters, there are many praying for us, but there are also many who are praying against us, because they lived and embodied experiences in this place. In working through Sankofa, we were and have always been clear that as African-descended people, we are oral tradition-centered. There are stories to be told because there are traditions to be held intact. We continue to wrestle to develop with spiritual acuity associated with ocularity. There too is a definitive distinction that pulls and pushes us to concretize the wisdom of our lives in forms as reflective of differing competencies, while oral tradition remains vibrant and effective in our respective lives. We did not know how much the tension between orality and ocularity would stretch us and continue to stretch us in ways that almost pull us apart at the seams and threads of our individual and institutional life. From the stories of those who have gone through the challenges of earlier versions of our reaffirmation of accreditation and familiar with those associated self-study processes, we're in nothing like we've ever been before. The common wisdom is that we have been in this place before, but the case now is what wisdom do we need to pull forward so we can learn and exercise the lessons in order that we minimally pass this challenge this way again. I observed myself and my colleagues begin to explore Sankofa as a way of being in the world. It is a way of life. I have observed us in real time do the practice of Sankofa. Although we have not always fully comprehended the gravity of what we continue to undertake, we strategically position ourselves in light of each other and this institution to see, to hear, to learn, to teach, and to know. Some things we did not want to be aware of. In some instances, we really wanted someone else to do the work. Please, somebody else be in charge. All we want to do is just kind of find our cubicle, find a place to teach and study, write our books, write our passages, engage our lives in ways that are less disruptive. However, Sankofa as a way of life continues to set us in accountable relatedness to each other and this institution. It does it even when we do not want it to do so, because the spirit of life, God, the one who is known by many names, the ancestors, the living dead, the elders, and the generations that are on the way call us to contribute to the wisdom that is being formed by us in our very midst. We are called not to manage or effect any change in ourselves or each other, because that is the temptation. If everybody was just like me, what a wonderful world this would be. but to efficaciously live out what we bring, which in turn affects change in us, the present and the future. In obedience to the directive of Sankofa, we discover that we are often unable to change anything or anybody, even though this is our fervent desire and intent. We discover that as we contribute to the presence, we can witness in real time the impact that we have upon each other. This is what Sankofa wants us to realize, manifest, and take care of, because it is our impact that forms the future. Somebody is going back and fetch us, inquire of us the wisdom that we contributed, and the form of the presence in which they live. Sankofa in real time is the effect of putting us in place to witness cooperatively affected change within ourselves and between each other. As an institution, all of us in our varied capacities can better now speak to the disposition of affected change, what it looks like in this community. We can contribute the wisdom afforded to us from our varied vantage points. I believe that we in Sankofa have a methodology that confronts and requires that we do not practice mental memory exercises as a means to ward off the reality of amnesia. There are forces around us avidly working to help subsidize memory loss, embrace and live oppressed lives, subsidized by the leveling of worship sanctuaries, displaced mothers and fathers, children caught in the web of social media and reality TV. Black institutions of higher learning are toppling because the public sphere is no longer affably subsidizing blackness. Black people, descendants of those forced into displacement or forced migration, are inadvertently teaching voluntary immigrants to unabashedly retain their ethnic identity and to critically prepare themselves to embrace racism that is never absent from us. It is amazing how the oppressed, how we as African descended people are always teaching folk while we're living through stuff. Our TC embracing and increasing its exercise, understanding, and application of Sankofa is the corroborating of what we have always known as spiritual people, but conceptualized in many other frames. We have the spiritual capacity to invoke and call into the present our memory. This capacity is distinct from the psychological exercise of recalling in verbatim facts, persons, conversations, and situations. Sankofa is a process very much akin to calling into the presence of a family member or friend, situation or conditions along with their impact. We literally experience their presence, their situation, their condition with us. They and the situation, they and the condition are present with us in the very moment. And we experience them on numbers of sensory levels. In Sankofa, there's a distinct level of sensory awareness that signifies to us that they are present. We are literally in conversation with them and they with us. Something akin to what we talk about in Scripture when we reference the experience of Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. When Moses and Elijah showed up and talked to Jesus, in memory, we and they are occupying the same space because the people's situation conditions are embodied in us. Jesus was transfigured. The disciples experienced change. We too can experience similarly the anatomy and physiology of the persons that we call up, come and talk to us and tell us who we are. I want to thank Dr. Itihari Toure, Director of the Sankofa Center for Data Evaluation and Quality Enhancement, as well as the SACS liaison, for continually helping me and us to systematize the metaphor of Sankofa into practice. By doing the work of institutional effectiveness, framed and supported. The center challenges us to do the work that awakens us to a methodology that prompts radical examination of the wisdom we bring forward in our teaching and administration. Some of the wisdom and the truth of self-discovery we are not prepared to embrace. The radical examination of doing Sankofa in real time encourages us to embrace the process, because the wisdom of the past that we need and that we need to form in the present is already available to us. Yes. I think it quite interesting that in the last 6 months in the history of this institution, yes, we have literally witnessed us getting down to the core scaffolding in this place. Air-conditioned units replaced, yes, which constituted exposure of the inner scaffolding, the brick, the mortar, the wires, piping, where driveways were torn up to get at water lines that were corrupted from long-tenured use. Yes. The radical examination of Sankofa brings us to the very bowels of our being, relative to every level of our existence. Yes. It puts us in a place where we have to examine our core scaffolding. We're called via circumstances to examine the patchwork done as parcel to the maintenance of life. Radical examination will not let us hide from ourselves, let alone from each other. It tells us that the patchwork no longer works, and we can no longer not be accountable for who we are and what we're putting out in the world. We blame Sachs, but the Great Spirit, God, the ancestors, the elders, students yet unborn, are calling us to be differently accountable. Those that are on the way need a different way prepared for them. And they believe, and they showed up with their belief that we have it in us and that we have the capacity to put in place what is new and revitalized scaffolding so that they can build when they get here. ITC, we are doing the work even if we are resistant. We are doing the work. We are doing the work even if we're not ready to do the work. Radical examination through critical elucidation of assessment helps us to see and come to grips with what is most painful, also what we are most proficient and effective at producing. It gives us an opportunity to determine if we're producing what we intended. Are we living our mission? Has it changed? The evidence informs us of the types of reparative and our restorative interventions necessary for not only recuperation, but healing. The evidence indicates that the energy of the Spirit tells us it is accomplishable. Talk to any student with any tenure here. They will tell you what they get. Listen with them. They will tell you how they're overcoming. Talk to any student with any tenure here. They will tell you how they're making it. Talk to any graduate who has a hard time appreciating the education while they're here, but when they get out there, they discover they are equipped and able to handle it. ITC, we're doing the work. That's good. One of the critical lessons that I have learned in doing biblical exegetical work is that when I read about a character in the text, it is never just one character. It is never just a single entity. But when you read that character, it is a metaphor for a group of people. One person is a movement. The types and degrees of strengthening and realignment that needs to take place, because we are never alone in doing this work. We would be tempted to think and practice Elijah theology. I am the only one left. Go and hide ourselves in some cave and say, I'm the last prophet in Israel. But the Great Spirit, God, Yahweh, calls Elijah and said, would I waste all of this on you? There's 7,000 yet to be told of the goodness of God. So go anoint somebody. Go teach somebody else. Go help somebody else to learn so you know your place. I got 7,000 that never bowed. The 7,000 were the children yet unborn. Doing Sankofa in real time means that some persons in our midst will help us raise the respectful question so as to retrieve the guiding answers that are available in the midst of the work to be accomplished. Sankofa, doing it in real time. Methodology, radical examination is the process of invoking presence and memory. Nothing other than what is critically valuable and valued will suffice in support of the present engagement in service to a future delivery. The criteria by which we examine our present are based upon the collective memories of those who came before us, in our families, in our communities, and that they called us to be a part of the deliverance of the future. For the sake of our discussion, we inquire about those who came before us. What quality factor caused you to speak? What quality helped you to live? Why have you persevered? Why are you so determined? Why did you leave me in this place? What did you give me that I might use? ITC has committed itself to be the place that teaches and lives Sankofa in real time. We are the best prepared and the most efficient and effective to do this kind of work. Nowhere else in the world is prepared to do Sankofa. Nowhere else in the world can help us understand the power and authority of calling out our past, looking at our present, and seeing our future. ITC is an institution of care. Sometimes we miss that. People show up with memories. Memories of mama, memories of daddy, memories of uncle, memories of aunt. Some of them are good memories. Some of them are bad memories. But as an institution of care, it is our responsibility to help nurture healthful memories so that if they are damaging, healing can take place. Somebody can be in place to help somebody find their way. In our appreciation of doing Sankofa in real time, it is essentially a way of living as an African descendant person in the Western Hemisphere, because we have learned to exercise the genius of being able to grow straw, make bricks, design pyramids while raising children, keeping each other fed, clothed, and housed. We do all this while keeping families, educating each other, surviving tenacious onslaughts on our character, destruction of our neighborhoods built on land that nobody else wanted, but now has become valuable because of manufactured greed. No wonder we always tired. No wonder we have a tendency toward burnout. So that many of us retire after spending so much of our energy trying to save others that we have left nothing for ourselves. ITC as a premier institution is a seminary of higher education, embodies the trueness of this character. It is normative for black institutions to overfunction, but we got to learn a better way. I'm going out on a limb here that maybe we are the primary repository of Sankofan wisdom in the Western Hemisphere, the living character of black theology and liberation. So that's to help people to come up with a language that describes and defines and codifies specific methodology that is located in this institution and make it applicable to anybody that shows up here. Yes. We are being helped to research and interpret the core understandings, interpretation of this education and its relevance to one's professional practice of ministry. Students, when you finish here, you are a professional. You have paid enough money. You will have borrowed enough money to know yourself as a professional. And we are here to help you with your professionalism. Students, the faculty administration have engaged in a collaborative learning process. This learning engagement is critical and creative thinking exercise as a function of collective leadership. Finally, we have engaged in learning prominent inquiry reflection, where one reflects upon actions and ideas for continuous learning. What we have discovered is that every black institution hits the same wall. Why? The question to be answered, are we committed to our own generativity? In the language of ITC, are we interested in practicing a Sankofan methodology to do the radical examination that supports our continued existence? If we are not, then we are a fluke of opportunity that has run its course and ultimately a waste of resources. Demonstrating commitment requires strategic planning with two essential deliveries: strategic intervention and strategic integration. What this means is that we take time to sit down and think and plan, ponder, pray, look after, talk to one another to figure out what it is that we need, pull forth that wisdom, and then integrate it into our being. This methodology is done in a manner where we not only teach the curriculum, but we live it in real time. That done at the same time we're teaching. This is a different era for us as an institution because we're being challenged to try to imagine sustainability from a perspective of investment in ourselves rather than a perspective of survival. Unfortunately, we have sold higher education to the highest bidder. We live by how we borrow money, which means that we are continually sharecropping with somebody else. Somebody else owns the land, but we work the crops, and we get a payoff dividend at the end that's just enough to keep us in debt to the next year. What this means, brothers and sisters, that if we borrow too much money, you will never get out of debt, and therefore never own a house, therefore never able to own anything that is really yours where you set down roots, which means that you will always be paying somebody else. But what our ancestors are calling us to is to shift our integrity. We can no longer abide on the backs of one another. We can no longer survive on the backs of each other. But we can no longer sell our education and our processes to the highest bidder. But what we have got to learn to do is to figure out how to structure ourselves so that we get out of debt while we're here.
Yes, that's good.
So that when you leave here, which means we need some scholarships. We need some investment in ourselves. We need some appreciation for why we do what we do. We need to talk to one another and encourage one another because many of us are tired, low, and weary. We come here worked up and worked out. But when we get here, what we're looking for, somebody to give us an encouraging word, not just to press on, but let me show you how to make it. This is a place where we concretize our strategic planning and make accountable our tabulation for what we value and the feedback we need from our investment. This means that we make a definitive shift from intuition-driven assessment to intuition-informed assessment. We already know how it goes. We just got to learn how to count it. To make this shift means that we as black institutions of higher learning, and by extension congregations, denominations, black businesses, personal, communal, and other corporate developments in the black community, literally have to place ourselves with teachers and submit ourselves to the processes of being educated so as to do this kind of work. There is no shame in asking questions. We literally lay new neuron pathways in the brain that help us to understand and assimilate data processes that facilitate grasping, understanding, interpreting, and applying the research that we have done on ourselves. And then we stand and tell somebody who we are. I'm asserting that the SACS process, gravely as it may be, is just what we needed. It is time for us to stand for what we know. The radical examination of Sankofa brings us to a place where we realize patchwork is no longer feasible, can no longer support us. It brings us to an uneasy critical practice of self-elucidation because we realize that patchwork damages. In my association with this institution, we can't shape it, y'all. We don't own this. This belongs to the ages. This space showed up in the imagination of God, housed in the intuition of our founders, kept together by those who have come this way, called for by those who own the way. We have come because many of us literally have no place else to go. We're at a loss within ourselves and the world because we need direction. But here we can examine ourselves. Here we can teach and learn self-examination in a way that is experienced often as convulsive because we are shocked by a reality of what we find. We didn't know all of that existed. Sometimes we are angered because nobody else told us. This is a place where we give ourselves permission to make consequential our understandings of gender. And out of these consequences develop psychologies and theologies that address sexual orientation, political affiliations, educational directions, communal organization. Now, I know a lot, there's some big old words, but we got to do this work. We learn to examine and assess the implication of disparities in economics, health, and education. We can learn to do that in this place. We are able to look around and see opportunities of potential in us and families that birth us, along with the communities that midwife and mid-husband or mid-father or mid-mothered us. We put all of that in a construct and practice of faith so as to affirm life for ourselves and learn to articulate our own value. This is a space where we demystify miracles because we discover the keys to the scripture. And now we can help it make sense. We as leaders are able to construct out of discoveries that behind the veil of the temple, it has been ripped and torn from top to bottom. We are the ones that help make the faith work. The faith that we practice is miraculous, held together by our prayers, our fears, our contributions, and our discontent. This religion that we practice is held together by vision and insight, pulled together from our lives. The miracle is we're still alive. And we're able to tell the story, just how we are making it over. Sankofa as a methodology is doing the work in real time. It is a skill to actuate theory and practice at the same time. This work is accomplishable. It is grounded in the realization that everything around us tell us to flee. But we can't go. We got to stand, stay, fight, and push. What we learn from what it brings us to is a notion that if indeed we do believe that we are children of God, that we are followers of Jesus, that we are the body of Christ, take a lesson from the main character of our gospel reading. I'm tired, y'all, of black mamas standing in the middle of the street crying over their children. I'm tired of black mamas standing and asking systems to help them with their children. I'm tired of reading the text where black men are X'd out of the story and left black women to fend for themselves. I'm tired of reading the text and interpreting the text in a way where we are faced with structures that are committed to not helping us, but we have to convince them that we are worthy. But here's the push in the text. That black mama stood in the middle of the street, met that Jewish man, functioned like a priest herself, called him out for who he was, and told him he was capable. Brothers and sisters, folk are calling us out and telling us we are capable. And here's we're going to take a lesson. What I like to imagine Jesus did after the behest of his compadres who told him to leave her alone, she met him where he was and told him about himself. And in that moment, he had to do some radical examination. He did a Sankofa moment. He had to ground himself in a different kind of identity and turn to her and say, whatever you want, you got it. If we are going to do this kind of work, that means we got to be willing to be confronted with how we have set ourselves in places to resist the requests and cries of others and be confronted in a way where we say, whatever you need is what you get, because they tell us who we are. They own the way. To do Sankofa in real time is to stand in the moment, willing to be confronted, do the integration, and stand and tell the story of our mutual deliverance. God bless you.
We can only say thank you. Please be seated, and we will be going out in just 2 minutes. Thank you so much for this wonderful message. We needed it at a time such as this. And so, Dr. G-dman, following the special music by our illustrious chorus and director, Dr. Allen, we will have the benediction. And remain seated after that until the pulpit guests, people have left.
want at this time to acknowledge Dr. Ann. Thank you so much. And also introduce from Mount Carmel Missionary Baptist Church, some of my road dogs. Brother Keith Johnson and Reverend Dion Wimbush, who's a graduate of ITC. Creator, thank you. Thank you for your work in us and work through us. Thank you for your work for us. And thank you for enabling us to become everything that you have made us to become. Thank you for your tenacity. Thank you for your determination. And you raise it in us. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Where there's need for healing, do so. Help us to be such instruments. Where there's need for repair, help us to do so. Where there's need for restoration, help us to be such. Where there's need for family, help us to frame it. Where there's need for honor and praise, we shall do it. By your power, by your spirit, and by the prayers of those who prayed that came this way before. Answer their prayers that we might stand. In the blessed names of all of them, even those we don't know, we pray and we bless and share one with each other. Amen and Ashe.